So, hello and welcome to today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed the music and I found this quite suitable for today's topic. Today, we want to discuss capability maps that talk business. It's about the language, not only. And if you want to learn more about heat mapping techniques that turn your map into an executive dashboard, that's the place to be today. So if you are an enterprise architect, a business architect, and are kind of frustrated because usually your maps are not really used for business design, this is the webinar to be. My name is Wolfgang Goebl, and I used to be a frustrated enterprise architect. Now maybe I call myself a happy enterprise designer, because what we want to achieve with Intersection Group is to move the idea of architecture, and capabilities are big in the business and enterprise architecture space. We want to move it and make it enable people from management to use it for business design and to structure their organizations or to design their organizations. That's the topic for today. Some administrative details: the session is being recorded, and you please ask questions whenever they come up. We will have an eye on the chat and we'll answer the questions. There is also a Q&A at the end of the session. So that's the administrative stuff. Some words about who we are. So maybe you have attended some of our webinars already, then you know us. I'm one of the founders and presidents of Intersection Group, a not-for-profit association, with the only purpose to help people create better enterprises. So the idea is to found the practice of enterprise design that enables a co-creation, a co-design of business and IT structures. So, and that's also a topic for today. I will tell most of the story today. I will do the show, but I'm only, to be honest, I'm only a student by the fabulous Jim Dowling, who is here. So he provides the wisdom and I run the show. Jim is also an advising member, and I've had the pleasure to work with him for the last 15, 16 months or so. I've learned a lot about capability modeling, and he has a lot of experience in working with management and using the capability concept for strategic management purposes. So maybe say some words about yourself, Jim.
Hello, thank you, Wolfgang. Welcome all, and it'll be a great conversation. And we do encourage questions. I'll be following the questions that you may submit and feeding them over to Wolfgang as he presents our story to you. My first venture into consulting was launching a business with two partners called Continuous Business Information Technology Alignment. The day we announced it started a cascade of editorials and retaliations in CIO magazine and Small Business Systems, Mid-Range Systems magazine, and Computer World magazine about how stupid we were. And we loved it. The following 3-month period came editorials from clients, Viacom, a communications networking company, the state of Pennsylvania, where we created as the CIO called it, the best operating business in government, and in the state of Georgia, where we helped them to align IT and business at the same time. So been doing this a long time, and it's been a long time learning. And this is Wolfgang's opportunity for his thesis presentation.
And it took us a long time already, Jim and me and Rich, to come up with the story we present today. It's also a preview. In fall, we want to publish this also as an edgy tool. So be aware that there will be some publications in fall at our conference in Brussels, where we will reveal this deep dive. So today it's the first time we present this story. Amazing, exciting. Hopefully we try to make it as entertaining as possible. Ask questions whenever there is a question. And now maybe just let's begin. And Jim, you help me whenever. Chime in whenever there's something to say. Do it that way. What's the situation with business capabilities as used by enterprise or business architects today? And you all know the other organizations and think tanks that Gartner Group and Business Architecture Guild and so on, and TOGAF, they all use the capability concept. But those communities still come more from the IT direction. So when I want to summarize the situation, I perceive that the way we as enterprise architects, or they as enterprise architects use capabilities is more like drawers. They need some business structure to organize their stuff, because they need to know that this sub is part of the procurement capability and constructor is part of the maintain station capability and so on. So be aware that we as enterprise architects are usually not the ones who design the business structures around the organizational structures, because it's done somewhere else. So we have the situation that executives structure their division, their department into teams, not by design. So the org chart is the way they structure their what's going on in the company. And capabilities is something completely different. And we must be honest enough to understand that they don't really care about our capability map. That's a sad reality. Usually they don't care and they don't use it for business design purposes. We want to change this with Intersection Group. That's what we want to do together. And that's what the story is today. So the question for today is, how can we ever connect the world? So we have the big men and women in top and medium and senior management, and they manage the operations each and every day. And they also think in the future. So they design the enterprise each and every day with some big decisions. And maybe on the lowest floor, maybe in the basement, you have the IT department, and they try to do IT application portfolio management. We must be honest enough, that's what we use capabilities for. And today's story will explain some steps how you maybe can move away from the basement to the top floor, to the office of the CEO, and achieve and try to achieve that it's part of his and or her everyday discussion. That's what we want to achieve today. But maybe before that, a little introduction to the concept. That's not new. That's the definition we have in AGI. That's what Intersection Group defines as a capability. Quite simple definition. We just say, okay, what we, the enterprise, are able to do by orchestrating people and assets. So in this picture here, you could say this railway company has the capability to maintain a track maintenance capabilities, if you want. And you see people, you see workers with certain skills, some talent, and you see some raw material, gravel. So you see machines. So these are assets in AGI. And it's a pretty simple abstraction. We say, okay, we have a capability, see there's a business component, and inside of this business component, you have people performing activities to achieve certain outcomes. So that's the way we see it. And in AGI, people, processes, so this typical symbol for processes here, using assets. Of course, you need assets, machines, and so on to create well-defined outputs, hopefully. And that's not new. I'm sure that bores you, because the other bodies of knowledge have similar definitions. It's about finding a boundary and put people and assets and activities into this bubble, into these components, to create well-designed outputs. Maybe what's different in our point of view, and that's a major difference, is that when we talk about assets, we don't only mean IT assets. But today, people use capabilities typically for IT assets only. I've never seen a company that uses all the hardware assets and also manages the hardware assets based on a capability model. So capability maps today are used for IT purposes only. And that's really a sad situation, because you can't unleash their full potential. So today is about how can we move away, how can we also include physical assets, like a digger, which is a machine, or gravel, raw material, and an application. So everything you need for track maintenance, which is a process or an activity, people need to perform everything that is needed to create a serviceable track, the well-defined output, is part of the capability. That's pretty straightforward, but the simple move from IT only to the physical world and IT to include everything that is needed is a major shift, because that enables managers to do capability-based planning and cost calculating and heat maps, as we will see in a minute. We have two parts in this story today. So the first part is maybe closer to your reality. So if you are an enterprise architect and you only have the mandate from the IT department, so maybe you report to the CIO in the IT department, then we have the situation that you need to work bottom up. And you can talk to application owners, to business experts, but it's a long way to go to the top floor and to senior management. But the basic structure, so the million-dollar question is, how can we structure your business into well-designed capabilities? Are there any guidelines that are independent from whether you start bottom up or top down? So imagine the situation, you're an enterprise architect and you want to design a well-designed capability. And you want to design it not only to manage the IT applications of the enterprise, maybe that's a slight shift in mindset. So the challenge is to build a one-page document, enterprise on one page, then that we, the whole enterprise, can use to discuss also the overall health of the enterprise, heat mapping, not only by IT health, also by business. Where are we good at? How can we heat map by performance criteria? So a map that can be used for strategic design challenges, for broad discussions, to foster a broad discussion. So a map that is used literally by everybody, not only in the small IT or enterprise architecture ivory tower. That's what we want to achieve. And a map where individuals can zoom in so that they can use it with their peers for particular design challenges. But at first, maybe we should agree on a bird's eye, a high level, broad map, enterprise on one page. That's what you want to achieve in a first step. Independently, if you start bottom up, from if you only have the mandate by the CIO. So in this situation, in the first part of the story, imagine a situation you have the mandate from the CIO, but not from senior business leaders. And that's tough. I've done that, been there. It can take years until you get to the top. So what you usually do then when you go to a new company is you read everything you can get. So you have a look at the existing org chart, maybe look at vision, mission, what's on the web page. You try to get some strategy docs, process models, product models, project documents. So usually it takes me 1 month, 2 months of reading before I start talking to business experts. So when I'm new in the company and I start from the bottom up, always, all of my assignments were bottom up assignments. The first contact usually is I try to find the most senior business experts, the seasoned outliers that know the business, that have been around for decades or so on. And it takes a year, 2 years, a lot of conflicts between the business experts. And when I do that, I already start sketching a capability map. So after reading a lot of documents, I create one for my own, which may be utterly wrong, simply wrong, but it's at least a brain dump. So it's what's on my mind. And I must have a certain quality before I go up to the B-level executives, and it can take another year to go up to the executive board. Yeah, so we must be aware that when most of us have this brief by CIO or IT, it's a long way up there until you get to the people who are the real enterprise architects. We must be honest enough. The managers are the ones who make the big decisions, which affect the whole enterprise design, the whole enterprise architecture most. And yet most enterprise architects have really struggled with getting their stuff there. And in the center, I'm back to the video and to the song in the beginning, is one advice in any situation of enterprise design. We must be aware that language is the foundation of all enterprise design. So using a capability map is always tough work on language, because language is squishy. So the use of language in a company is squishy always. It's fussy, ambiguous, muddy, if you want. I don't know what's the best word in English. People are insecure about their abstractions always. Also the business experts, also the most senior business experts, when they name something, a concept, they don't use it in the same way. And a lot of problems arise if you don't get it clear. And so the advice here is build a glossary of time. Try to establish a common terminology as much as you can, but no more. Yeah, there are some discussions in the domain-driven designer world, ubiquitous language, only within a bounded context and so on. I'm still a big fan of trying as hard as you can to drill down to the very core of a term. I've had a situation in a railway company. They had 15 different terms for railway schedule, for train schedules, a year annual train schedule and a capacity train schedule, and 15. And then we worked on the topic only on making the concept clearer, and we ended up with 5 different terms. And the result was a reorganization, because they had a team for each kind of schedule. And when you drill deeper into the name, into the concept behind the term, that's usually a way to bring clarity. So use this possibility more as you are used to, and be aware that they don't know it, that they are muddy, that they are squishy with the terminology. That's maybe underpins all capability modeling. And then value streams. If you followed our webinar, we don't really like the term, so we call it the flow to product delivery. It's always a good idea to start with asking what are the major product groups in that case of a railway company. In a railway company, it may be passenger transport. That's the product. Freight transport is another product category. And in order to transport people or freight, you need to route trains. That's typically done in a different company, and a different company, maybe in a railway, in a holding corporation, is railway infrastructure management. So the product of this infrastructure company within the holding is, of course, the railway infrastructure. So that's their product. They build it, they maintain it, and so on. And when you do that, you simply follow the steps you need for product creation. So you start from the right, from the major product group, and you follow the flow backwards. So what do I need to build or maintain a railway infrastructure? Okay, I need to be able to maintain it. Before that, I need to be able to build it. Before that, I need to be able to plan it in a year ahead. And then I need some strategic long-term planning, maybe in this sequence. And it's pretty straightforward. So it's quite easy if you think that way. And it's usually a good idea, and you get a really tough skeleton for the further capability map if you follow the flow to product delivery. But optimizing for flow, if you have attended other webinars of other intersection webinars, is only one dimension you should optimize. So optimizing flow, that's not new. That's not what intersection group has invented. That's really important. Yeah, Taylor and process management, a huge topic. Value streams these days. Follow the flow to product delivery. The second dimension is reusability, componentization. For me, it's a bit like yin and yang. Yeah, you need to optimize for flow, of course, but the next discussion is how can I reuse across product creation streams? And in that case, maybe this company could say, well, if we have passenger transport and freight transport, maybe shunting, so doing the shunting for passenger trains or for freight trains, is so similar that we only have, say, it's only one capability, and we reuse it across those product creation streams. That's maybe true for driving the trains also, with a question mark. So, for example, difference is freight trains, usually they drive at night, and passenger transport is usually done in the day. And then you need to discuss, okay, for drive train, for this capability, we need people with a certain skill, train drivers, so they must be able to manage the locomotive. Are those the same skills? Do we need the same people with the same interest, or is driving a passenger train very different from a freight train? You need deep business knowledge to discuss that and find that out. But it's an important question, because the further enterprise design very much depends on your answer, and you must answer that as the CEO, as the top head of enterprise design, if you want. So the second step is you search for capabilities that can be reused across those flows. Yeah, ask the question, what belongs together because of similar activities, similar skills, and similar assets. So are the skills and assets similar between freight and passenger transport? Maybe, I don't know. And if they are, maybe it's a good idea to see driving the train as a capability that you can share. So now we have those two dimensions. Yeah? Optimize for flow, find the capabilities based on the flow. And the second thing is more based on business components. Gartner uses the term, but it's like yin and yang. So we see capabilities as business components with people and assets, hardware and software assets, and certain skills, with well-defined outputs and clear boundaries. We engineers, I'm sure many engineers in this 45 people that we have here in this room today, engineers know this concept of componentization, and it's a huge concept in architecture, modularization, loose coupling. So finding reusable components in organization design would be a major shift forward. Typically, what we see today is that people who structure organizations do that by gut feeling, not by design. They don't design capability maps and then derive the organizations. What they do is they structure it by brute force and political interest and so on. So the absence of those business component concept in businesses for us is a huge flaw in organizations. With capabilities, we want to bring the idea of business components, the idea of components back to the business side. Yeah? And the third step, maybe it's an easier one, is you all know these shared capabilities or support capabilities, support processes. The topic has been around for decades. Yeah? So what you usually find is human resources, innovation, finance, accounting, regulatory relations, IT, and so on. You will find them in the org chart, you will find them in a process model. That's quite often a no-brainer. So you search for capabilities which are shared across the other operational capabilities. That's the idea. And finally, what you need to create is this two-dimensional capability map. Maybe that's not so new for you, but maybe to say a few words about the structure of such a two-dimensional map. Yeah? So what I usually do is you have two axes. It's two-dimensional. And the first thing is use the categories with care. So what we usually do is we say, okay, we have customer-facing capabilities. Put them on top. Why not? I mean, the customer on top. And then you have customer-facing capabilities, maybe like passenger services, freight services. And below that, ask yourself which capabilities are needed for operations for delivering those customer-facing capabilities. And in that case, must have passenger trains, night trains, freight trains, train operations. You do the train scheduling, energy management, and so on. And the big question here is how to structure it. Why do I structure it in train operations and train companies? Well, maybe this is more driven by product groups. So in that case, I say I group capabilities by passenger train, which is a major product group, by night train, which is another major product group, or by freight trains, which is another major group. This was an intentional design decision. In that case, I decomposed it by product group. But there are other ways. You could also structure it by time or flow. That's what you see here under railway infrastructure management. First, you plan. So maybe that's the strategic planning. We had it in the flow. And then you build and maintain it. And then as a parallel step, you do resource management. So there's always some sequence in the capability map. But now you have several dimensions and you need to deal with care. But you have only those two dimensions. Use them wisely. Use maybe the y-axis, the vertical axis to express dependencies, to say, okay, customer-facing capabilities. Passenger services, selling tickets. Okay, what do we need to be capable of doing to sell tickets? We need to run trains. So it depends. You can't sell tickets if you can't run trains, and you can't operate trains or route the trains if you don't have a railway infrastructure on place. So there's use the y-axis to show dependencies, use the x-axis to show different product groups like passenger, night, and freight trains, or to use time. So you have those dimensions, and that's tricky sometimes to find. And there's not the one and perfect way. That's the idea here.
Wolfgang, can you back up just a bit?
Yes.
Couple of questions. One from Charles. Where do you place business capabilities that are linked to the value streams then? Charles, did you get an answer to that question?
Yeah, so I'd say it's a compromise, right? So you find those capabilities that are related to the value streams or flows to product creation. And you can see it in railway infrastructure management. You could say you plan, you build, you maintain. It's visible from the left to the right, right? Or shunting, the shared capability in train companies. We do shunting before we do a final security check before we drive the train. So you can use the x-axis wisely to show them. But of course, you can see the flows. You can use arrows. That's also allowed in AGI. But be aware that you only have 2 dimensions because it's a two-dimensional map. That's the idea. More questions, Jim?
From Ian McKenzie, what skills are needed to build a good capability map, and how do you improve your ability to create high standard quality maps? Let me take that one.
Yes, take this, please.
The number one skill is open curiosity. You want to listen a lot more to the experts than you want to tell them what you're going to do for them or with them. You want to use open questions, like when you think about customer-facing capabilities, what comes to mind? As opposed to, here's a list of 255 customer-facing capabilities. Check off the ones that we need, and by the way, be willing to explain them. So the skills are conversation skills, they're listening skills, and they're diving in for additional understanding as well. Another skill that's of value is network building. Wolfgang described how his network building started with some expert business leaders. You can pick the way your organization is working, or how you're told that it's working, how you experience it working. There are people who others look to as leaders. Find out who they are and what they're expert in. Don't not ask the question. So for example, ask your customer facing questions of your marketing groups and your customer care groups and whatnot, but also ask those other people who are influential and experts on it. We actually have a course, and I'll put that in the chat, on developing capability maps. It goes a little bit, or I'd say a little bit beyond where this is going to go. But let's go through this and then come back to us on that, Ian, if you still have a question. We also have one for you, Wolfgang. Odin Ortiz, I think it is, very hard for me to read. How do you avoid confusion of business capabilities and system capabilities?
I don't know what a system capability is.
Ian, share with us an example of a system capability.
So, but maybe an answer is we believe there are only business capabilities. All you need is business components that orchestrate people, assets, processes in order to create well-defined outputs. That's what it is. So there should be one and only one kind of capabilities. That's the idea. Okay, I move on to the second part of the story because maybe that's the more exciting one. I mean, now you have a high-level capability map to manage your IT application. Finally, so you as an enterprise architect, and now you maybe may have a map that is aligned with business, and maybe in a long conversation, if you climb up the ladder from business experts, application owners, business leaders, and you involve them in a broad co-design process, it may already be theirs. That's what you want to achieve. Let's assume you've climbed up the ladder after a lot of time, and now you can, what we like to do, assign and manage IT applications, and we know this heat mapping, red, green, and yellow. There's already the heat mapping topic of today. But in the second part of the story, we want to move away from this existing use of capabilities and to show a little story that explains to use them as a tool for true business design, to make it their maps. That's what we want to achieve with Intersection Group. So we promise to go beyond this classical usage of ARM. That's maybe the more exciting part of the story. So imagine there's Eduarda, and she's an enterprise designer. She's new to intersection railways, and she knows nothing about the context. That means, of course, she also has to learn. So what she does, and she's hired as in a department that is really close to the C-suite. That's where enterprise design architects should have always been. And she's lucky enough, just for a second, we can dream of an enterprise designer and an enterprise architect that is directly reporting to the C-suite. That's where they should belong. Imagine this situation for a second. She's new. And in this situation, what she also does, of course, she reads all she can get, like bottom up. No matter if you start bottom up or top down, you should read vision, mission, strategy, org chart, process, product model to draft maybe a first capability map. And it's the same challenge to establish a common terminology. But now you can go through this loop in the other direction. So you can start with management, because senior management now understands the concept of business capability as something they need urgently to design their businesses. Imagine this for a second. And Paola, which is the head of passenger services, so head of a business division, calls Eduarda. So maybe after 2 months or so after she has started her new assignment, Paola asks Eduarda, can we have a meeting next Tuesday? I want you to help me with a tricky design challenge. I have a budget. So that's typical manager slang. She has a certain budget, 39 million euro maybe. How can I increase the overall passenger satisfaction from 60 to 80% within a year to stay competitive against other forms of mobility? Now we are in this manager's language. Money, time. We don't know exactly the solution here. I just need to have a better passenger satisfactions. I don't have any idea what to do with the 39 million. So now it's getting not an IT only challenge. And now she has a mandate, and preparing for this mandate, she asks Gemini, for example, or ChatGPT or other machine learning algorithms, which is a good idea. Yeah, for example, she asks Gemini, from a passenger's experience, what outcomes of railway travel must a provider pay particular attention to? And it's really exciting how much input you can get already from AI. I mean, maybe, Jim, you want to say a couple of words. You've played around with that. It would fill a complete webinar. Our advice here is use the tools. Something to add, Jim?
And there will be a webinar on this. So what I use AI for is to understand new clients. I had a young executive who was asking for coaching on building out capability models in her company. And she was in the, let's say, the administrative, the operations group, not IT, but she had been in IT previously. So what we worked on there was asking questions about her business. So her business was Constellation Brands, which is a wines and spirits distributor in the U.S. So we asked the question, my company is, and this is a direct into Gemini, the prompt was, my company is Constellation Brands. Who are my major competitors and what differentiates me from them in the eyes of our customers? And it came back with this list. This particular one was then recrafted for this work, which was from a passenger's experience, what outcomes of railway systems, etc. And this goes on for another half page of capabilities. Now, maybe you don't like the language, punctuality and reliability and frequency of service. So what? Just use the list to come up with your list of capabilities to understand your new client or your new business, your new job, or your new challenge. So let's say a competitor of your company or your client's company has already solved the problem. Get on 3, 4, 5 different generative AI applications online and pose the same prompt to all of them and compare the answers and ask the question, how did, and give your competitor's name, overcome the challenge of, and whatever the shared challenge that you have is, and then compare and extract. Do not take this as provable fact. Yes, Gen AI hallucinates. It makes stuff up. It fills in the blanks. It infers things, not just reports things.
I think the idea here
is a certain way. Go ahead, Wolfgang.
I think the idea for Eduarda is here to read whatever she can get because she's new in the company, and there may be several sources, and one is Gemini, others could be ChatGPT. And the advice here is don't take it one-to-one as capabilities, but you will get some ideas like, oh, of course, our passengers want punctuality, reliability, frequency of services, efficient ticketing systems, accessibility, seamless transfers. That sounds pretty obvious, and it gives her a lot of ideas. And what she now in this situation has to do is to focus what's relevant for Paola, because she needs to go to Paola's office and structure a conversation and find a way to use capabilities to structure the enterprise design. That's the idea. So we want to use capabilities to filter the attention. Where shall we focus? Shall we focus on punctuality and reliability? Shall we focus on frequency of services, seamless transfers, and so on? Shall we, where to focus? We only have 39 million euros. It must be viable. We must be able to do it, and so on. So maybe it's a good idea to go back to zoom out to the full picture and ask yourself what's totally unrealistic. For example, punctuality and reliability, frequency of service, seamless transfers, and so on, are huge enterprise-wide challenges. Yeah? If you want to be more punctual, you must get the shunting in on time. You may need more tracks. You must make better railway infrastructure management planning, shorter times where you close tracks because of maintenance work and so on. So punctuality in the eyes of a customer is a simple requirement, but it's really tough for really companies to do it. So the first filter she applies here is what's not realistic with 39 million euro, because we need to address those capabilities. We can't be solved. Paola can't solve it, and there's already a huge project ongoing to improve the punctuality. So in that situation, she removes that from the list. And then the second steps she does is she zooms into it. She tries to assign those ideas from AI or other sources and assign it to the level 3 capabilities here. So now she drills down into passenger services and says, okay, passenger information. We need to provide audio information. We need to provide accurate train schedule everywhere, from the mobile app to the station and so on. We need to show accurate delay information and so on. So what she did, she used the input from AI and other sources and did some editing with her analytical part of her brain and made one step deeper and drilled down into those capabilities to be prepared for the discussion with Paola. And then she met her. So Eduarda meets Paola and presented her findings. And she said, okay, good morning. Look what I've created for our discussion. Where shall we focus based on our upcoming new strategy? I've seen a comment here in the chat, someone asking how is this related with strategy? That's exactly where we connect strategy with capabilities to execution. Because the strategy in this situation may be only available as a draft and it's not communicated at Intersection Railways, but Paola was part of the strategy process. And Paola said, okay, in our new strategy, we differentiate ourselves from the competition in the physical space. So it's not so much about having the best app and the best mobile digital experience. We want to differentiate ourselves in the physical space, whatever that means. And we want to provide the best experiences for our passengers at the railway station, a clear focus. That's where we want to differentiate. So this typical manager language here. And what Eduarda now does, she uses the capability map, the zoomed in capability map, where you zoom into level 4 and to mark certain capabilities. So that means, okay, some capabilities are distinctive capabilities. That's where we differentiate ourselves from the competition. It's distinctive. So cleaning the station as part of the new strategy is distinctive. Ensuring that passengers feel secure, providing a comfortable interior design, enabling accessibility for disability, that falls into these categories. But shops, no, not so much. So she agreed with Paola, having the best shops and the greatest variety of shops is not distinctive. We can have some shops, but that's not where we differentiate us. And these two categories, I think, is a beautiful way to translate strategy, which is always squishy, bit fuzzy, and break it down into capabilities on level 3 and further on capabilities on level 4. And she has used AI and other sources to find the set of capabilities. So there's, of course, some editing work that Eduarda had to do before that. So now,
okay.
Yeah.
Quick point on this. More often than not, when you bring a capability map with these color coding around an organization, there will be people who are completely surprised that your company, top leaders of your company, have agreed that clean station, ensure that passengers feel secure, are the differentiators between them and their competition. And remember, in a railway system, the competition includes driving your own vehicle, buses, and airplanes, and even boats in some places. So don't be surprised when your client leaders are surprised by what their top team is trying to use as differentiators and leverage for growth in the company. Back to you, Wolfgang.
Yeah, and there's one interesting question also in the chat. Sometimes you have the scenario that Paola would say something more like, implement this technology because it will address my passenger satisfaction issue. So we have the problem that tech consultancies directly go to the C-suite and say, okay, you need this new shiny data fabric, meshy AI something framework. It's a tough situation, and you're absolutely right. And then you need all the skills of Eduarda to move Paola away from a technical solution and back to the customer passenger experience and back to the business. Technology is never the answer alone. Capabilities, it's about capabilities, people together with activities and technologies. So yes, it can be tough, but interesting point. Thanks for that. And Paola, to continue the story, already has a network in Intersection Railways. So Eduarda asks Paola, who shall I talk to? Maybe I need to dive deeper here to explore further. How can we have cleaner stations? How can we, to find what are real challenges and where we can invest those 39 million? And Eduarda and Paola said, okay, maybe talk to people at the railway station. I have a contact for you at intersection Central Station. Go there and talk to them. They are working on the ground floor. They are cleaning the stations every day. They are maintaining. They know what's going on in the railway station. And she says, okay, I also know the CIO. And I also know the head of railway station services. So now you have more people to talk to. So having a mandate from senior management, of course, helps and opens doors. Capability, maybe the finding here is capability modeling is never a solitary exercise. You don't do it by your own alone. Of course not. You need to talk to many people. And when you start from the bottom, you have a good network to the other senior middle managers you need to talk to. So she asked Paola, who shall I talk to? So finally, Eduarda goes 2 floors deeper and meet Raivo, head of railway station services. And she asked Raivo, hey, Raivo, what's your opinion? I mean, you're head of railway station services. Where do you think we struggle most in the station? Because Paola said we need to focus on the experience in the station, and you are responsible for the experience in the station. What's your opinion? And he says, we don't have enough shops, and some of our stations can get too dirty sometimes. I often hear that passengers complaints get lost, and what's really a problem, a real disaster, IT does not get the delay information right. Finger pointing to us poor IT people like always. And she says, okay, interesting point of view. The shops are not enough, but maybe they are enough, but maybe that's only an opinion. So when you do the interviews, you will talk to people and they have opinions, of course. But what you can do now, you can use heat mapping techniques. So what she did, she translated what Ravio said into color coding, best in class. So the average, cleaning the station, because Ravio said, okay, some stations can be filthy at times. Passengers feel secure, that's not a problem. Comfortable interior, some passengers complain sometimes. Provide a convenient set of stores is below average. So we have an orange here. It's not red, but it's below average and so on. The trick here, I think, is to use a capability map on this more detailed level to translate the opinion and make it visible of a single person. And then you can take this map with the heat and say, okay, that's the heat by Raivo. And then you can go to other experts and you will get different opinions. And it's a good idea also to invite larger meetings to come up with a heat that everybody agrees on, or a large group of people agrees on. So now you start with heat mapping. And in this example, we use a very basic metric, overall performance. Are we good at it? Are we bad at it? And you all may be familiar with more sophisticated metrics, IT metrics. How is the IT support in this capability, for example? And there can be more sophisticated one, but for this example, we wanted to keep it simple. Also to say, maybe it's not needed to make it super complicated. Maybe it's more important to have a broad communication process and have a structure and have a clear language. Now you have clear terminology represented by those level 4 capabilities. That's the power of capabilities, and don't overcomplicate it here. Use simple performance metrics. So what she does here, she translates Ravio's statement into colors and assigned it to capabilities. And the next interview is to her colleague, because she is part of the enterprise design department, as well as Severin, the service designer. And she met him and said, hey, Severin, could you help me with some research? I have some opinions by Raivo, and Paola asked me to invest 39 millions into the right capabilities. I don't know what right means. Could you please help me? I want to understand our passengers' journey or tasks, the experience facet in AGI, better, to enable Paola to invest in the right capabilities. If you know AGI, now we connect to the experience facet. Capabilities are architecture. It's about where to invest, how do we operate. And now we hire the service designer who helps us with the sound research. And okay, finally, Severin says, okay, no problem. I'll be back in 6 months and present you with my findings. And Eduardo says, well, that's way too late. I need it next week. That's not possible. But then they agreed, okay, 8 weeks time, we will come up with a sound user experience research, quantitative, qualitative research and some findings. And in the meanwhile, Eduarda decided to visit Intersection Station. She wanted to see it with her own eyes, also to meet the team lead of cleaning, but she took an hour or so and just walked, found their way and walked, roamed around in the station. And what she saw was a young lady using this kind of cleaning machines, and it took quite a while to clean it. And this lady didn't look that happy. On the other hand, what she experienced was a loudspeaker. And so before the train came in, she only understood some brabbling. Yeah? So attention, the train to brabble will be rub. So what she discovered is a problem. So the problem with the noise was a problem with the quality of the loudspeakers, which is an asset, for example. So what she does here is she wants to feel the experience in the station, and she came up with her own findings. That's the idea in this station. And then she went to the team lead cleaning. He asked him, okay, what's the problem with cleaning? We have reports, and some people say some stations, also intersection stations, can get somewhat filthy at times. And she says, okay, we never have enough time to clean this huge station. If only we could get the cleaning machines where you can sit on. Now you have information from the ground floors. That's the idea with capability modeling. Talk to people from the ground floor, people who are working there, listen to, of course, to the passenger, because now she goes to Severin and he presented the findings of the survey. And the findings were 80% complain about inaccurate information about train delays. We never get train delay information right. But almost everybody says it's easy to find the way in the station. 75% say that the overall experience in the station is only 6 out of 10. And we have many complaints about the filthiness of certain stations and the noise level at the platforms. And some more of the younger people complain about the interior design is not up to date. So what we get here, we get some input from the experience design, but it's of course not mapped one-to-one to capabilities yet. Now Eduarda has the large challenge to summarize the findings with all of her interviews in a capability map, because now she has the task to go back to Paola again. So she went to her office and prepared a heat map again. So what she learned is, providing audio information, we are below average because nobody could understand the audio information. Accurate delay information, it's almost a disaster. So it's below average if we want to be polite. It's not well below average. It's not red, let's say it's orange. Providing a convenient set of stores, we are average. Cleaning the station, we are average. Sometimes it's filthy, but we are not best in class. Providing a comfortable interior is also a yellow. So again, she uses quite simple metrics to summarize the findings. And maybe that's the point here with capability heat mapping, is that you need to combine the information you get of various sources, various interviews, some customer research, and use it for heat mapping purposes. And after a while, she combined it with the distinctiveness criteria. So if you remember this, the first meeting with Paola was about asking what is important according to our strategy, which capabilities are distinctive. So Paola said in the first meeting, cleaning the station is where we differentiate ourselves, ensuring that passengers feel secure, providing a comfortable interior design, and enabling accessibility for disabilities and so on. So those four are distinctive. And then we have others that are a necessity. Of course, we need to have a train schedule and we need to show delay information and so on. And now she uses a technique which helps to focus. She wants to help Paola to focus her decision, her money on the best possible changes. She has 39 million euro to focus on certain improvements in certain capabilities. And she asks herself, where are we below average? Where are we below average? Let's provide audio information, show accurate delay. And the second question is, which distinctive capabilities are not best in class? So cleaning the station is not best in class, but distinctive. So we want to have cleaner stations. You combine this distinctiveness with we are only average, and providing a comfortable interior design is distinctive, and we are not best in class. So maybe we should focus on that. And with this information, she goes back. She talks to Christina first, because we never get delay information right. Can you help us? Now she goes to the CIO, to the IT people, and she gets a funny answer, right? That happens sometimes, but only just a couple of minutes. Yeah, that's not a big problem. Maybe not for the IT department, but for the passengers. Anywhere, there's already a 23 million IT project underway to fix it until 2033. So in this situation, it's not feasible to improve this information, even if you go back to this capability map, and many people complain about it. It's not realistic that Paola can improve it within a limited time and a limited budget. And for that reason, Paola Eduarda also removed this capability from the list. So what's realistic within the given budget? And then finally, she goes back to Paola and says, okay, good morning, Paola. These are the capabilities we think we can improve. So I've talked to so many people. We did some user research. We believe it's feasible and it's realistic that we invest your 39 million euro in cleaner stations, in providing a more comfortable interior design, and all the information really sucks. It's not understandable in some stations. That's why we found this heat, because audio information is below average. We must have, at least we should be okay in this capability. And we believe that we can improve that capability. And Paola was happy and said, okay, what does it mean? How can we achieve a cleaner station? How can we provide a more comfortable interior design? How can we provide a better audio information? And that's subject for further design, of course. Yeah, now, what you have achieved now is you have a clear focus. That's what we want to have. Now we want to focus. We don't invest into accurate delay information because we know that's not feasible. We don't invest in more shops because that's not distinctive. We focus in exactly those three capabilities. And in further steps, I don't know, Jim, maybe you want to say a couple of words about this.
So if we look at now, let's think about a little bit about the interaction of capabilities and outcomes. Here we have a rendition of the redesign, modernization of the stations. We're looking for cleanliness. How do the seating improve the ability to keep it clean? The seating now only has 3 pedestals per row, and it has tables, etc. And the flooring is not carpeted. It is a wood-inspired laminate, which makes it easier to keep clean. So we've addressed this, and now we can move on and take a look at the sound system. The issue of brabble, 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 brabble. On the next slide, Wolfgang. Can I move that? Oh, I guess I can move that. So picture, if you would, that modernized receiving hall or waiting area for a train, and those beautiful speakers on the left-hand side hanging from the ceiling where people can be blasted by sound. However, on the other hand, what if you could use little speakers like this and many hundreds of them with noise canceling technology built into them? Wouldn't that better fit the aesthetics? Well, as it turned out, in one case that I worked on at an airport, it actually cost less to implement the small speakers closely spaced to people with sound cancellation technology whenever the enunciation was coming on. So let's take a look at the next one. I got it, Wolfgang, I think. My button down. Oh, there we go. So now the clean station. Remember we heard about riding on the cleaning machines. Well, riding on the cleaning machines in this particular instance on the left isn't such a great idea. They need a different asset to do the job. They need different skills to operate that asset. On the right-hand side, that's well suited to the interior, where you're going to wet the floor, sweep the floor, wet the floor, and dry the floor all in one pass with a driven machine. Different person, skills are required, different asset is required. So the capability, clean the station, just became two capabilities. Clean rural open station platforms and clean interior station areas. Back to you, Wolfgang.
Okay, so we are running out of time. So the final findings, what you've learned, hopefully, and we are a bit late today, but we can have some time for questions after that. What you've learned in this webinar: establish a common terminology. I can't say that too often. Language matters. And I've seen too many enterprise architects that don't care enough about terminology. Follow the flow to product creation. That's a good way to find level 2 and level 3 capabilities. It's pretty natural, yeah, to follow the flow. What do we need to produce something back to it? It's a good idea. But don't only follow the value stream. These days are value stream addicted, I would say, or focused. Also focus on reuse and business capabilities like yin and yang. Identify those shared capabilities and see what you can reuse. That's how you structure your capability map in the beginning. And try hard to establish a two-dimensional capability map for the entire enterprise. That's a huge challenge. I haven't achieved it in my company, to be honest. I've never seen it, that our capability maps are hanging on the wall of the CIO, but that's where they belong. They should move from organizing people into teams, structuring their organizations, into designing capabilities. So the trick here is to design people skills together with assets, IT and machines and processes to create well-designed outputs through business components. Bring the idea of true business components to management and to everybody. That's the idea. Distinctiveness makes a complete sense to make strategy clearer. So you translate fluffy, squishy strategy, vision, mission statement into, you force yourself into a clearer structure and make it visible. Use heat mapping, a blue dot, or mark those capabilities that are distinctive, because in that case, you should invest more. Yeah? You invest more to become best in class, because that's where we differentiate ourselves. And use simple advanced heat mapping criteria to prioritize. So we already had some discussions in the chat to use the Moscow method and others. My answer would be there are plenty of methods in the strategic management space. It never ends. So we don't have too few of them. What we have a language problem, and we have the situation that capabilities are absent in strategic management. But sometimes you need more advanced heat mapping criteria and more advanced ways to prioritize. I'm sure you know more of those methods than I do. Yeah, and use distinctiveness and performance to focus. That's what you want to do. That's the whole exercise. You have 39 million, you have a certain limited budget, you have a concrete challenge of Paola in this situation. Help me to improve customer satisfaction. I don't have a solution in this situation. So use distinctiveness and performance or other metrics to focus. I think these are the final findings for today. Okay, any further questions in the chat? Yeah, Odin, you ask, as you get closer to publication, would it be possible to get a copy of a draft of the early copy? So Odin, please message us if you want to be a reviewer. The plan is to write it over summer, and we need a lot of reviewers. We want to publish it as part of AGI. That's also this advertisement here. If you want to learn more about AGI, capabilities are only one element. We have a language where we connect capabilities to purposes and tasks and other AGI elements. You can go to enterprise design, and as of October, you will find a draft of capability modeling guidelines as part of AGI. And if you're interested to be part of the reviewer group, just message us. I'll send you. And if you want to learn more about AGI, there's a training. That's the final promo. There's a training coming up tomorrow. So if you're hurry, you can still have a seat here, or you meet us again. So there are more webinars coming up. The next one is in 2 weeks from now. And of course, the ultimate way to meet us is in Brussels. We have an annual conference. Jim will be here. I will be there. Jim will be there. I will be there. And together we will give a 90 minutes workshop on capabilities and present the capability modeling guidelines. That's what you would meet us when you meet us in Brussels. And the final slide. Jim, any last words from your side?
Yeah, make a connection. LinkedIn is a good connection to follow some pieces that we talk about, but also make a direct connection, Jim Dowling, if you've got specific questions. And just as a reference, if you we'll make known to you some courses that are already being offered, in public courses that are being offered around this. And as I said earlier, I am putting together a brief introduction free course, and then another course on capability modeling. We already have a deep dive capability modeling course, and that one is fairly intensive, multi-day. We want something in between that can get people started in this kind of map modeling and mapping. Thank you so much for being with us.
So thanks, Jim. It was a pleasure. Thanks for your attendance and attention, folks. If you have any questions or feedback, send it to us via email, LinkedIn, and so on. Let's stay in contact. Intersection Group is a community project, so we need people. And on your way out, I can play a little music. If you want, you can have the same song. Otherwise, hoping to see many of you in another webinar. So thank you, Jim, and thank you all. Let's meet at one of our following events. So see you soon.